Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Onos and today we're going to discuss plus level weapons. Are they worth the grind? I received a question in the comments on the back of my last video and it started me thinking. Inevitably I got it into my head that I wanted to know for sure. So thank you to Maxwell for the question. Also, I hate you just a little bit because me being the way I am, once I started, I just couldn't let it go. To test this properly, I had to start from the very beginning and spend hours grinding and testing. You'll see what I mean in a moment. If you find the video useful guys, please do me a favour and let me know with either a like or comment. I'm hoping you'll find the information here of value. Okay, so first I'll talk about the setup and test environment I used. I wanted this to be a fair test so that we're comparing like with like. I couldn't use my current build to test it. My Adachi was already a +8 weapon and there seemed no point in testing for just 2 extra levels. So I dusted off my old hatchets build. I got myself a half decent +1 set of hatchets to use and then soul matched them to level 160. I wanted to start at a flat 160 with no familiarity bonus on them, as I'd be losing that bonus anyway once I started raising the plus value on them. I picked one move to use for every test and one enemy in the same environment to make sure there were no sneaky extra buffs, such as amrita absorption buffs or anything like that. I also made sure I was at the same level throughout so that I wasn't changing the foundations of the test at any point. The actual damage numbers here at face value don't matter too much. What I'm looking for is the scaling percentages. To get those, all I needed to do was make sure each test was done under the same conditions every time. I also tested both buffed and non-buff damage because I wanted to find out if the plus values on the weapon scale with things other than my base stats. I wanted to know if the buffs I applied would change the way in which the damage scales up. I'll say it again before we get into the details. This build is nowhere near to being fully optimised, so don't be ripping me in the comments because the damage is rubbish. This is all for the sake of making a fair test with consistent conditions. So, the footage you've been watching so far is me going back and forth between the dojo and the blacksmith to test the damage and then upgrade the weapon. I started with a +1 weapon, then +2, then +3, and so on, all the way up to +10. And yes, I farmed for hours to grind out a +10 weapon from scratch and tested it at each level simply to answer a question that got stuck in my brain. Thanks again, Maxwell. Also, quick point worth noting, while farming this whole thing, I actually came across a level 170 +4 set of Tomfas. After me publicly judging people with good RNG, it turns out that I'm actually one of those people. Typical. The RNG demons must have had a really good laugh about that one. For the record, I received those from Otokomaro on the Eye of the Beholder mission on New Game Plus using 10 Ochoko cups and with level sync switched on. The irony is that I found it annoying at the time. I couldn't use those Tomfas to soul match with my test hatchets. It would have messed with the test conditions. Anyway, back to the test. So, you'll have seen me doing this test without buffs and then with buffs, so that I could track the damage numbers separately. For the record, the buffs I used were the ninjutsu power pill combined with the hatchet skill all ablaze. I also used barrier talisman to help with my ki. I was going to read out all the damage numbers, but I realised that you would probably die of boredom and not really take anything useful from it, so I made some charts. Please note I haven't included any of the imbued damage numbers in this. They did change gradually, but the change was so marginal it wasn't worth including. For example, at level +1, the imbued fire damage was 40 per hit, but at level +8 the imbued damage was only 45. The change was so small. I'm assuming this will also scale with other stats and attributes, but that's a test for another day. So with that in mind, the numbers we're looking at are the raw white damage numbers. Okay, so the graph doesn't look like much, and the table with the figures might look a little complicated, so I'll give you the headlines and then I'll give you my thoughts on the question from the beginning of the video. Is the grind worth it? So point 1. The damage provided by the buffs was an extra 49% at level +1, but showed diminishing returns. For every plus level I added to the weapon, the buff damage increase I got dropped marginally. By level +10, my buffs were only giving me an extra 38%, so along the way, 11% of the buff damage was lost. Point 2. In terms of raw damage, the scaling is slightly odd. It starts off slow, moving from level +1 to +4 only gave me a 3% damage increase for every level added. Somewhere between 80 and 100 raw damage increase per plus level added to the weapon. Then at level +5 the damage jumps. Level +5 and +6 gave me an extra 6% damage each. Then the diminishing returns kicked in again, and the increase per level from then on went to around 5%. So okay, if you only care about the actual damage you're getting and not the slightly weird scaling, then this one's for you. Point 3. Going from a +1 weapon all the way up to a +10, for this test, I got just under 55% damage increase for the raw damage. That works out in this case at an extra 1339 damage per hit difference before adding any buffs. For buff damage, the difference was even larger despite the diminishing returns. The increase from +1 to +10 netted me an extra 1583 per hit in total. Remember that I had no familiarity bonus on this weapon and very little other optimization, so I think it's safe to say that the damage increases will be larger for you when you start adding in other buffs in a real fight. So, after all that, back to the question, is it actually worth the grind? Well, let's be honest, if min-maxing is in your nature, then like me, you're going to do it. You're going to squeeze every last drop out of your build because that's just how you roll. I won't tell you it's not worth it because, well, you'll never listen anyway. What I will say is that if you wanted to save yourself the grind, or maybe you've been agonising over the fact that you just don't have the time to really max out your weapon, then I personally wouldn't worry too much. The most benefit you're going to get is up to +7 on your weapon. If you left your weapon at +7 and never put in the time to hit +10, then you're only missing out on 15% raw damage using these figures, and less than that when you take buffs into account. It's not perfect, but will it cripple your build? No. The last 3 plus levels on your weapon, going from +7 up to +10, are pretty time consuming. It gets harder the higher you climb. If you don't have that time, I wouldn't lose sleep over it. Just play the game and enjoy it. You'll pick up weapons you can soul match along the way, and gradually you'll get there anyway. I hope you found the video useful, guys. As always, please leave me a like and comment if you did, sub if you're new, and I'll wrap it up here. Thanks again for joining me. See you for the next one. Take care now. Stay safe. Bye bye.